So I wanted to do a little bit of a who am I frequently asked questions episode or, video or whatever. So I wanted to do this episode or video to sort of introduce myself because I've been around a while, but I feel like we've had a lot of new people listening and, subscribing, which is so great. And also we're going to take a little bit of a turn in the new year, not much, but a little more content, actually, quite frankly, to be honest. We're going to get a little more in depth and do a little more covering of things. And so I wanted to sort of tell you who I am, because as much as we have bios on here or we, have a little blurb on all the social media, there's really not a lot of, unless you've been around from the beginning, you might not know exactly sort of why you should even listen to me at this point. Who am I and what gives me any kind of qualification to do this stuff? So, obviously you can tell from what I'm wearing, if you're watching this video, that I was born and raised in, right outside of Washington, DC, hence the football jersey. That's like the last thing that's important to me. But I was born and raised outside of Washington, D.C. I lived there for 30 some years. I went to college out of state. I went to college in West Virginia. And then I came back to Maryland and spun around Maryland a little bit as an adult in different parts of Maryland. Maryland, if you have any affiliation with the state, you know that it is a very tiny place that houses very different quadrants. And there are very different parts of the state. And I lived in almost all of them. I drove through Western Maryland on my way to university, but for the rest of it, I lived, in Annapolis near the water. I lived in Baltimore near the city, and I lived right outside of DC in Montgomery County, which is very different than any of those. So I had a really great growing up experience because the town I grew up in is super diverse, and I use that word in the true sense of with the true meaning, not just like we use it now in politically correct ways, but like a truly diverse socioeconomically and ethnically area. It was cool. It was a cool place to grow up. For the last 16 years, I have been a resident of New Jersey, and it is a very different type of experience, but just as wonderful. And I love the people from where I am and how your family when you're here, whether you like it or not. And so it's a good place. For the first part of my career, I was an elementary school teacher. I ended my career as a reading specialist and an 8th grade English teacher. And then we moved out of state and I became a stay-at-home mom / blogger. Remember those? They were, back in the day, they were the original social media influencers. I was around as a blogger when we all wrote on Google and, had a blog or blog spots, and then transitioned to, each new social media channel as it opened up. I had a YouTube channel. I had a Instagram when they were new. I was on Twitter. We hosted Twitter parties for brands. We did all of that kind of stuff. And while I was raising my kids, I was also making very little bit of money doing that kind of work. When it became a career for a lot of my peers, it just never really fit with who I felt like, the direction that I felt like I wanted to go with my life. I started that as a writer and not as an influencer. And so when it skewed more toward influencing and away from writing, I decided that wasn't really my jam anymore. And went back to get like a bunch of different certificates in holistic health coaching and mindfulness training. And I became a doula for a little while. I sort of bounced all around trying to figure out what my next career move was until, all the while raising 3 kids, by the way, and still writing about it all the time, until in the place where I live, we had a massive, massive storm and that decimated much of the Jersey Shore. And I spent a lot of my time when my kids were finally back in school after weeks of us recovering as well. When my kids were finally back in school, I spent a lot of my time with recovery efforts. I went over to the towns that were still in rebuild stage and helped with a lot of that stuff. And that kind of sparked a passion in me to go back to school for crisis and trauma counseling. And here we are, all these years later. I went and got a master's degree, got a license to practice counseling, and then continued on and got a doctorate in psychology, moving more into the world of maternal mental health and postpartum and perinatal period stuff, mental health stuff. So that was kind of what I graduated with, a specialty with my master's with crisis and trauma work. And then I graduated with my dissertation work all being in maternal mental health, perinatal maternal mental health. So I would say I'm like a jack of all trades, but that would imply that I'm a master of none. And I don't think that's true. I think I am a skilled professional counselor and a skilled researcher. And I have always at every stage of my professional career had a very curious mind that isn't really willing to settle for information that's just given to me. There's often a lot more like, well, why? How come? What do you think about that? Why would that happen? That doesn't make sense. Where do I need to go look for more information about that? That's been my way always, always, always. You know, when my kids were little, it was, what am I feeding them? How am I feeding them? What's in these shots? What shots am I giving them? Like, I've gone down the roots of all of the things that are sort of in the modern quote unquote wellness world now. I just never was extreme in any of them. I don't think so. My doctors maybe thought I was extreme every once in a while, but I don't think I was extreme in any of them. So from a professional standpoint and a personal standpoint, I've always had a curious mind. I've always wanted to know more than what's presented to me on the surface. I've always challenged nearly everything that I've been given. And I am continuously, I just have an active mind, meaning sometimes that's not great. Like sometimes it means I don't sleep, but other times it means that I can't sort of stop until I feel like I have the answers to things. Hence the reason my show is called I Wonder. That's where I am professionally. Professionally, I am a private practice owner. I work with mostly women, but some men and couples also. I work with women and couples on not just trauma and mental health, but also really parenting skills and how to sort of navigate the world of modern parenting. I have this podcast and I have a newsletter and I have a YouTube channel. And recently I have decided to sort of not switch directions, but sort of add on a layer of, you know, community building and group work. So listen for more of that in the future. And then personally, I am, you know, a newly minted 50-year-old mom of 3, almost grown. I have one still at home, but leaves for college in the fall. I've been married for 26 years now. So I was very young when I first got married. I probably shouldn't still be, you know, I'm sure nobody predicted that I'd be with the same guy when we were 50, but here we are. And I have for the last, you could probably say 10 years, maybe 8 if we're being conservative, been fighting a lot of health challenges that are ambiguous a lot of the times. And I haven't talked a lot about that. And I have alluded to it in some ways, and I have heard from people every time I allude to it that it's something they want to hear more about. And so one of the directions that I will go in the future is women's health as well. So yeah, that's who I am personally, professionally. I'm somebody who is, because of all those health challenges, sort of I was an athlete as a student, you know, and through college an athlete. And then as a young adult, sort of trying to figure out who I was without teams to be on, like what is my fitness and wellness journey without teams to be on? And now as a 50-year-old, relearning how to be active and healthy and well in a way that really just leads to longevity. So lots to talk about, professionally, lots to talk about personally, a lot of things that are going on in the world that are topical with all of those things, women's health, women's mental health, you know, marriage, children, all of those things. So, you know, that's who I am. What I am at my core is a curious, open-hearted, you know, sucker for a puppy, I think really open-minded human who really strives to simply see the humanity in other people. That's who I am. So if you're here and you're new, I'm so excited to have you here. If you've been around a while, thank you. I so appreciate that you're here. I so appreciate the feedback I get from people. It's sometimes weird talking into this microphone and into this camera, like hoping somebody out there is hearing what I'm saying, but never quite sure if that's true. And I am so appreciative when I do hear from you. I'm appreciative anyway. When I see that you're subscribing, I see that you're downloading, and I'm appreciative anyway, but I'm extra grateful when I know who you are and I can see the email or I can see the direct message or I can see something that says, hey, I have a question about this, or hey, I really appreciated hearing this, or hey, me too. So thank you. Thank you if you're new. Thank you if you have been here. If you feel like you know somebody who might also want to hear this or will benefit from it, gladly send them some links and we welcome them too. I'm happy that you're here. I'm happy we get to stay together through all of the rest of this stuff. Here's the thing. I forgot to say, and I'm kind of shocked I forgot to say it. All of those other things I said about myself, dog person was not among them. And it should be, because if I look this way to my left, there is literally a floor full of dogs. So that is one thing that you need to know. It's that I am a huge animal person. And so currently it's just dogs in my house, but it's been all number of things over the years and I can't get enough of them. I guess if you are also wondering sort of personally why you should listen, I am a parent of 3 almost grown kids. I have 1 still at home with me, but they will leave for college in the fall. And 1 is almost out of college and 1 is still in college. And they're pretty great people. So I feel pretty lucky to not only have been able to raise them, but to also have the kind of relationship with them now that I dreamed of having, and one that includes them, also informing me of things and giving me perspective and helping me to go down different rabbit holes to see what they are talking about and understand their point of view as well. So there you have it. Dr. Christy Ritz-King, licensed professional counselor, mom of 3, wife of 26 years, Washington football fan, and terminally curious person who just wants people to feel good and enjoy the rest of their lives. I'm excited to have you here. I hope you stick around.